Die-hard Newcastle Knights fans will do almost anything to see their stars in action. They lined up this morning in their hundreds, one supporter getting to Marathon Stadium at 4 in the morning.
You get here early, that's it, first serve.
Are you a bit crazy?
Yep.
As the sun peeped over the horizon, the Knights players put on a training session with around 1,000 supporters looking on. Breakfast was turned on for the faithful, but Peter Sterling, who was asked along to meet the fans, was a little peeved about the early start.
I can't understand why you don't have a Hunter Valley's biggest luncheon or dinner or something. That's easy to get to. I don't know about breakfast.
There was no doubting the support for rugby league in Newcastle, not just with the fans at the ground. 2HD broadcast the morning's activities live across the Hunter.
The Newcastle Hotel is one in the last of a line of city pubs destined to disappear from the skyline. It'll be replaced by the 8-storey Menkins apartment building. The plan was approved last night by a council many believe to be anti-development.
Now, I think there are a couple of public myths about this council. It's been said by components of the development community in Newcastle that this council has been very anti-development. In fact, when you look at the statistics, this council has been a very pro-development council. It seems to me that this council is actually less sensitive to some heritage issues than the previous council was, and I know a lot of people in the community will be very surprised about that.
Council gave the green light despite recommendations from its heritage officer, the National Trust and other historians to make a full evaluation of the hotel's significance. So despite being painted as procrastinators, it seems the City Council may have jumped the gun on consigning the old Newcastle Hotel to history.
The Chamber of Commerce and other components of the local development community have conducted a concerted and rather successful campaign to bully some councillors into believing that they're holding up development.
Meanwhile, councillors have reversed their decision to award themselves a 50% pay rise on the brink of a budget blowout.
When you're asking the community to bear the pain that this budget is asking Newcastle to endure, it just doesn't do anything for the credibility of the council to be saying at the same time that we're going to increase our allowances.
The distinctive tobacco smell and lingering cigarette haze are still much a part of the social culture of licensed clubs, but according to Neil Francie, not for much longer. He says employers are required to abide by strict health regulations to protect workers from unwanted cigarette smoke inhalation.
There is legislation that provides for occupational health and safety, which basically requires people who run clubs to have a safe environment. And that means in the context of environmental tobacco smoke, enabling people to avoid being exposed to passive smoking.
And these regulations are set to get tougher. Mr Francie claims that employees are refusing to put up with health risks while working.
There have been barmen, for example, in Melbourne that have gotten not insignificant amounts of compensation.
The barrister told a health and club industry conference in Newcastle today that eventually there will be no smoking in clubs.
For the moment, it's a period of adjustment, I think, for clubs. But over the next 3 to 5 years, I think they have to get to a point where either smoking is totally prohibited, or if it's allowed at all, it's allowed in a separate room somewhere where the staff in particular are not exposed to the smoke.
Amanda Bolger, NBN News.
Past and present students joined in the school's birthday celebrations, enjoying a family picnic day. The school was founded in the late 1800s and mainly catered for boarding school boys from rural areas. It wasn't until the 1970s that it was converted to a high school. During the weekend's centenary celebrations, a reenactment was held, reliving the arrival to Aberdeen of the Sisters of St Joseph, who founded the school in 1896. Some of the school's present students then heard tales of days gone past.
Well, it's very different, you know. There's only the one building, church by the weekend and the school by day.
For 45 very young at heart residents, a chance to literally kick up their heels. Today they braved the unpredictable weather to officially welcome in the latest arrival, an indoor heated swimming pool.
A place like this is absolutely essential.
The pool is part of a new $50,000 recreational centre. Although only just completed, it seems residents have already caught the fitness bug.
People are swimming daily, and more people are swimming than what we expected.
The centre boasts a variety of sporting equipment, all of which can be swept aside for social gatherings. And another milestone to celebrate, the first resident moved into the complex 7 years ago today. Sarah Griffiths, NBN News.
Looking Through a Glass Onion is the creation of John Waters, who also performed the role of John Lennon in the show's first tour nearly 3 years ago. Now the colourful and moving portrait of one of the Beatles' leading singers and songwriters is back, this time with Jeremy Stanford in the role of John Lennon.
Well, it gives a really beautiful picture of John Lennon as a person. It's not about impersonating him so much, because here I am, this is my costume, folks, there's no glasses or anything like that.
John Waters says Jeremy gives the show a fresh new feel.
Well, it naturally changes because it's a central role that Jeremy Stanford is playing this time, which is the complete focus, and the whole concept of the show revolves around him. So whoever does it is going to do the same things as I did. It's the same show, but they're just going to have their own way.
Looking Through a Glass Onion opens at the Newcastle Civic Centre tonight and continues through until Sunday. MSC Ossian, NBN News.
A sister city of ships has slowly been building off Newcastle Harbour, up to 20 coal carriers at a time waiting to be loaded. Some ships have to wait more than a week for their cargo, each lost day costing up to $20,000 per vessel.
We've decided to go public on this issue to highlight what we see as poor management at the facility. The employees at the facility are sick and tired of carrying the blame for what we see as clearly poor management practices.
I'm actually quite delighted to see, always delighted to see ships waiting off the port of Newcastle, because that means there's people looking for Hunter Valley coal.
The Port Waratah Coal Service says the union's call for more staff is designed to undermine talks set down for the Industrial Commission next week. It claims 1996 will be a record year for Newcastle Harbour, with at least 50 million tonnes of coal to be shipped. The service says that will increase further with the introduction of its second coal loader this Friday.
the start of the second ship loader won't have the desired effect that we're being told, because there's not enough people to operate that facility, that second ship loader at the moment, and it will just sit idle much of the time while the ships continue to build up.
Both sides agree there has to be improvements in efficiency regardless of new technology. The only problem is each side wants the other to improve. A solution could come as early as next Tuesday, when the union and PWCS meet with Commissioner Harrison to try and resolve the long-running issue. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
It's like cat and dog. Whenever you have the two groups, they're going to fight.
The latest ammunition to give recreational anglers a shot at the pros is a planned $100,000 upgrade of the Swansea Co-op. Government money will build a new wharf and help deepen a channel to the co-op.
They pay their way, all right, but they get a lot of support through the fisheries programs and everything else. I mean, we pay our fees too. We pay a lot of boat fees and licence fees and all that sort of thing.
This will benefit recreational fishermen too. We don't stop any recreationals coming down here and launching their boats.
But in the next bay, the amateurs are feeling hard done by. Council ratepayers' money, as well as government funds, were used to build a new public wharf, and there's no possibility of channel deepening in sight. The real issue runs deeper. Going under the banner of Fish for Our Kids, the Concerned Anglers Group say their main aim is to drive commercial fishermen from the lake.
We have a petition going at the moment for a net-free Lake Macquarie, and it's been signed by people from all around the lake.
If the lake is managed correctly, commercial fishing is a good gauge to the actual lake. If you can support 30 fishermen on the lake, it is actually shows that the lake is still producing enough fish for both sides.
Council has budgeted for the staged re-implementation of meters recommended in a consultant's CBD parking report. 1,000 of the coin crunchers could be back on the streets within 2 months in a bid to frighten city office workers away from choice areas sought by shoppers during the day. But President of the Newcastle Region Chamber of Commerce, Paul Murphy, says it's hard to see anything but a revenue grab in the exercise.
We're shattered to think that the decision's been made without any further consultation going on. I mean, we were promised, and the people of Newcastle were promised the opportunity for further consultation to take place, and it hasn't been done.
Along with meters, there'll also be short-stay free zones within the CBD, along with the likely implementation of peripheral parking zones. As office workers' cars are forced out of the city, council fears the nearby suburbs will become clogged. Areas such as Derby Street, at the moment fee-free, may have pay and display parking coupons implemented. Takeaway food shops say it'll cost them in lost trade. But some city shoppers have welcomed the idea.
I'm very pleased about the situation, mainly because maybe in the future we'll be able to find parking near the shops that I wish to attend to.
But whether the meters now are going to make the system easier for people to operate and find parks, I certainly question it. And I just feel that, if they're going to introduce the parking meters, we've said all along, Andrew, it's got to be throughout the whole Newcastle area, just not the CBD. Because we're being singled out, and I think that's...
It can look like an ancient castle trapped in a time warp, but closer scrutiny reveals a more modern explanation. The skyscraper in the scrub breaks a tree line near Girvan, a small rural community about 80 kilometres north of Newcastle. The owner, Peter Gray, was raised in the area and still lives just a few hundred metres from the building site. But it appears the media-shy businessman couldn't see the forest for the trees, so he's gone over the top in more ways than one. It has 9 stories, 4 bedrooms, numerous entertainment areas, a kitchen, study, and of course the little added extras, a spa, pool and tennis court. The building was inspired by the skyscrapers at Surfers Paradise, and on a clear day you can actually see the Nelson Bay coast. And if the view from the penthouse isn't enough, you can always take the stairway to heaven. But this unique house, which was started 18 months ago, has also created unique problems for the builders, Flannery Constructions. Even before the project got off the ground, contractors had to literally cut off the top of the hill, with the resulting rocks used as a retainer wall. It was just a challenge to get the building materials on site, with the closest supplier nearly an hour away. And then all the bricks, tiles and other supplies had to be hoisted to the right level. And the problems don't end there. 9 tanks to be used just to meet the home's water needs. A $100,000 lift has also been installed to take the climb out of the castle. When finished, it will cover 1,400 square metres, about 10 times the area of the average family home. It's taken 650 cubic metres of concrete, 120 tonnes of reinforced steel and more than 70,000 bricks to get to this stage. And although there's $1 million view from every level, the owner won't disclose exactly how much it'll cost to turn this dream into reality. The house may stand atop Dan Mountain, but when it's finished in 6 months' time, Peter Gray is destined to become the king of the mountain. Richard O'Leary, NBN News. The former SES headquarters became the scene of its own emergency situation. Tankers from 2 stations arrived at the Nobby's Head site just before 8 o'clock last night. The fire was contained within 20 minutes and restricted to the 2nd floor, with the literal help from a firefighter's best friend, rain. It's believed an electrical fault sparked the blaze in the unoccupied building. But the fire could prove to be a blessing in disguise for its owners, Newcastle Council, which had planned to demolish the building anyway. That now looks certain, with the structure severely damaged by fire, smoke and water. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
Global warming is a problem many people seem aware of, but few are actively working to reduce. At a seminar at Newcastle University today, speakers outlined the effects of changing weather patterns and the social impacts of a warming climate. Transportation, heavy industry and power generation remain the major greenhouse contributors.
Vehicle emissions are an important source of greenhouse gases, and if people would simply use their vehicles less, it would help. Over the last 12 years, there's been a tripling in the number of automobiles in the Sydney-Newcastle basin area.
According to researchers, Australia is struggling to meet a world target of turning the clock back 10 years on emissions, which even then was still high. If the thought of an extra degree or 2 may seem attractive at this time of year, there may be drawbacks.
And in fact, in some scenarios, the suggestion is there will be really no snow, and you may have to go to New Zealand to go skiing.
It should be remembered too that a cooling of just 4 degrees thousands of years ago triggered an ice age. Andrew Lobb, NBN News.
One of the first to volunteer was Jan Bryan. For her, giving blood is a chance to give something back to the community. She began donating 20 years ago. As a nurse, she saw just how vital the service was. Years later, she found out what it was like to depend on it.
I was in a life-threatening car accident 3 years ago, and because of that car accident I received 6 blood transfusions.
Jan was trapped in the wreck of her car for 90 minutes, eventually being airlifted to hospital in the Westpac rescue helicopter. Today, her donation was honoured with a badge, but she knows that someone else's donation gave her much more.
If you're able to give blood, please give it. It only takes about 30 to 40 minutes of your time, and the time that you give could mean a lifetime to someone else.
A sun shower was the right scene for the handover of 4 new fire trucks at Raymond Terrace today. Water pressure and sirens were both tested out as the trucks, worth $160,000 apiece, got their first workout. The firefighters who'll now take charge of them know how much easier and safer the new equipment will make their jobs.
We have a lot to deal with in a lot of different situations, so the better the equipment is, the much easier our job is and the better service that we can provide to the community.
Unlike the old trucks they're replacing, the water pumps are mounted at the very back of these units, meaning pressure can be maintained and a stronger, bigger water stream produced. In the field, that adds up to more effective and safer firefighting. Crews can stand further back from the blaze to achieve the same results.
Oh, certainly safer for the firemen, and from the point of view that they're all dual cab units now, and the crew are all under the one cab together and they can communicate. It's a better unit all round, yes.
Making another emergency service a little easier today was the donation of new equipment to the ambulance service at Rutherford. Rotary clubs handed over a new set of the vital Jaws of Life worth $12,000. The addition of the equipment, which is essential in nearly all serious road accidents, makes Rutherford's emergency vehicle one of the best equipped in the state. Laura Saperstein, NBN News.
The winner paid $210 and $160, the trifecta $530.10. Racing was also at Rose Hill. Our best race 7 over 1,350 metres. Avarice gave Kevin Moses his 4th win for the day. It paid $10.80 and $3.10. The trifecta $124 even.
If it hadn't been for my daughter, I don't think I'd have lived so long. She's been a wonderful daughter to me.
It was a poor turnout. The rain and cold weather kept many away, but a handful of dedicated gun reform supporters turned out at Newcastle's Blackbutt Reserve. Bearing banners of peace, they were determined to voice their approval of the Howard government's proposed changes. The small gathering stood in stark contrast with the huge pro-gun rallies which have been held throughout the country, a recent protest in Cessnock attracting a crowd of thousands. Despite this, organiser Claire Miller says the gun lobby is simply a vocal minority, while the majority of Australians are quietly in support of gun reform.
I didn't ever expect a lot of people like you see at the pro-gun rallies. We don't stand to lose something that we really value.
The group says it's time more people spoke out in favour of gun reform. A petition which has been circulated throughout the Maitland area has already received a strong response.
The response has been absolutely amazing, which leaves no doubt in my mind that the majority of the community are in favour of John Howard's gun reforms.
Smoke billowed from beneath the Luger Street home this afternoon as fire crews battled to put out the blaze. The owner of the house anxiously attempted to assess the extent of the damage, the fire having broken out in a garage under the home. It's not known how the blaze started, but it's believed several oxyacetylene cylinders, possibly used to operate a kiln, were involved. The fire was contained to the downstairs section of the home, the rest of the house suffering smoke damage. No one was injured. Police are meanwhile searching for two men involved in a hit-and-run accident in this stolen Commodore sedan in Newcastle overnight. The men, both aged in their mid-20s, were seen travelling down Union Street when the car mounted the curb and hit a 17-year-old girl. The girl was taken to the John Hunter Hospital with head injuries and lacerations. She was released late this afternoon. Emma Ossian, NBN News. Known as the Jasper program, the anti-truancy scheme is designed to help students, referred to as chronic truants, work their way back into the normal school system.
Our basic aim is, first of all, to build up their basic skills, their self-esteem, and try and get them to go back into mainstream education.
The state government grant will be used to help buy new resources for the program, which operates a special school out of the Lake Macquarie Police and Citizens Youth Club and is run by Gateshead High School.
I can now say how many 2s in 7, Krusty? 3. Okay, what's left over?
The teaching staff and ancillary staff, their salaries are covered, but resources such as paper or excursions or materials for home science, we have to provide ourselves.
One of the program's organisers, Rob Mooney, has also just received a Director General's Award for his involvement in the scheme and work with the East Lakes Community Network Committee and Youth Advisory Group. Emma Ossian, NBN News.
Workers at a bakery in Luca Road reported a blaze in a factory next door. Local fire units were on scene along with the bushfire brigade. The hazardous materials unit and breathing apparatus section were called in from Newcastle to assist. Firefighters were forced to wear protective clothing because of concerns nitrogen cylinders inside the industrial factory would explode, releasing the toxic gas. These fears proved unfounded and the fire was brought under control within 90 minutes. The rear of the factory was damaged along with a number of kilns inside. It's believed the fire was caused by an electrical fault in an oven used to make windscreen sealant.
For these pupils, clapping along with Kylie and Melissa is a pretty exciting way to pass a school day. It's also extremely valuable. The Camp Quality Puppet Show teaches what it's like to be a child on cancer treatment.
The message of the puppets is such a simple, basic one, but it's one that needs to be reiterated not just to children but to adults as well.
It also teaches children to accept physical differences. Puppets, it seems, spread that message best.
Children will relate well to the puppets and listen, and the puppets engage the children.
Sarah Griffiths, NBN News. With coronary artery disease, every second patient in Australia no longer undergoes an extensive stay in hospital for bypass surgery. Instead, they undergo angioplasty with a local anaesthetic and walk out of hospital the next day. But with the change in procedure comes a new role for the critical care nurse. Visiting Australia on a nurse education program, Nancy Morris said the cardiology nurse now has a wider range of responsibilities.
Preparing the patient for the procedure, letting them know that this is not open heart surgery, they're not going to be here for 5 days, that they're probably going to go home the day following the procedure.
Although the new coronary treatment is less invasive, post-procedural care is vital.
Because the patients do leave with some anxiety. They leave the hospital within 24 hours now, and they have a piece of metal sitting in their coronary. It's a permanent implant, it's not coming out.
According to Miss Morris, the nurse is now a lifeline to medical care both inside and outside the hospital. In the US, treatment includes outreach services, outpatient clinics and home help. Miss Morris thinks a worthwhile introduction here would be a patient hotline giving 24-hour access to the cardiology unit. Sarah Griffiths, NBN News.
If the Canadians were hoping for a light training run in the lead-up to tomorrow night's clash, they were wrong. Coaches wasted little time in setting the tune for the match against the New South Wales Waratahs, quashing thoughts this match is anything less than a mini-test.
It's a level of intensity that we look for, we need, and we're approaching this game like we would a test match. It's a big challenge, and we're trying to get these guys ready for that.
The visitors are coming off a 23-6 defeat to Queensland B. They expect the Waratahs to be tougher.
We feel that their backs are a little bit better than the Queensland backs.
In Newcastle, it's wet underfoot and both sides have no illusions that ball control will be essential for victory. Juggling positions will also be a major job for selectors. The Australia-Canada Test match will be played next Saturday at Ballymore.
Every game we play, we hope to put together a little bit more so that by the time we hit the Test match, we'll be flying.
Jonathan Upton, NBN News.